بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين. I have been asked previously about exchange rates, how they move, how do they become volatile, what affects them, what are the determinants. So in this video I'm going to explain some factors that influence exchange rates. So get ready. Okay, so the first thing is the inflation rate differentials. So if we take one country and the other country and we have some inflation in one of the countries, let's say the inflation in this country is small, so that's a small balloon just representing inflation, and the other country has big inflation. Okay, so what happens is that the currency, because of the greater inflation over here and the prices are up, the currency depreciates here, and on the other hand, with respect to the other currency, this one appreciates, so goes up. Second factor, which is the interest rate differential between the two countries. Now, the interest rate is usually considered a factor that affects or is strongly correlated with with exchange rates and inflation rates. And so central banks usually, they manipulate the interest rate in order to either affect the inflation up or the inflation down, and likewise the exchange rates up or exchange rates down. So then what happens is that if the interest rates in one country is high, very high, and the other country they have lower interest rate, in theory, they consider that the one that has higher interest rate draws foreign investors to come in and put their money, and so their currency appreciates. Let's say the interest rate is here very high, and so what happens is that their currency appreciates. Okay, so interest rate is high, currency appreciates, and in the other country, with respect to the other one, let's say they have lower interest rates, and therefore lower interest rates means that the currency with respect to the other country will depreciate. Now, this is actually in theory, because I have shown in a previous video the 7 detrimental effects of usury or interest rates on economies, and that this is a lie. This is only in theory, and this is a lie. And there was a story that I have mentioned. Volcker, the president of the Federal Reserve between 1979 to I believe 89, you can revisit that video. Volcker increased the interest rate, and what happened is that consumers were not able to buy big products like cars and washing machines, and then that put a lot of strain on companies. Companies started to lay off workers, and there were millions of workers laid off in the United States, and that caused a big disaster over there. So this is on one hand. This is on one hand, because there are some research. There's a very recent research in 2018. And I believe that research was published in the Journal of International Money and Finance by Ismailov and Rossi, where he said that the relation between interest rate and currency exchange rates is blurred. Not as they say that this is a real influencer. But in any ways, in theory, they consider inflation rate differentials and interest rate differentials as the fundamental factors which affect the exchange rate. Now we come to the non-fundamental factors, or the ones which affect in short term. These ones affect in the long term. So the ones that affect in the short term is, now we start with the current account balance. The current account balance, let's first say what's the current account. The current account is actually the balance of a country trading with its trading partners. So what comes in and what goes out, that's the current account. So the current account balance says if a country, let's say this country, as it exports from the other country, so let's say this country is exporting from this country, exporting to this country, and importing products from the other country, so exporting and importing. Now, if it doesn't have enough balance to pay for the imports, then it starts to borrow foreign currencies. Let's say that these are the countries that are lending foreign currencies to this country. So let's say now they are borrowing from other countries. So as they borrow foreign currencies to cover the balance, their currencies with respect to the other one will start to depreciate, and this country's currency will appreciate. Okay, now that's for the current account balance. So the terms of trade is the ratio between the exports and imports of the country. So if a country is importing more than it's exporting, what happens is that its current balance becomes in a deficit. So there's a deficit. Now this deficit means it cannot pay the foreign currencies or its liabilities because it's getting less foreign currencies. And therefore, as such, when it does so, its money depreciates. So because of the deficit, its money depreciates with respect to the other country. But the other country, since it's actually exporting more than it's importing, so the other country is now exporting more than it is importing. So now its current balance is in its favor. There is no deficit. Current balance is in its favor. And because of that, its currency will appreciate. So its currency will appreciate. Now, if we come to the fifth factor, which is the public debt. Public debt is the amount that governments will borrow from other countries to finance their public sector projects and do some governmental funding. If the public debt is too large, this will affect foreign investors, and this will make foreign investors run away and withdraw their money and investments from that country because it won't be so favorable. Now that's the public debt affecting the currency. So once the investors withdraw their money, what happens is that the currency will depreciate. Okay. Now the last thing I would like to include here, if you search on internet, you won't find this as one of the factors. You might find speculation as one of the factors, and you might also find some other websites saying 8 factors or 11 factors or 10 factors. It doesn't matter. What they are actually always mentioning is that they might split some of these points into more than one point, and these are the main ones. And I would also add media to it. Media is now a big tool for manipulating currencies. Okay, for those who think that this is part of the conspiracy theory, I would like to say to them that there was a report published by Gagnon where he said that the money, that currency are manipulated, that there is a widespread currency manipulations. He published his article or his report in International Economics. So that's Policy Brief in International Economics. He published a report where he said that there is a widespread currency manipulations in the world, which actually have negative consequences and have net drain on the currencies. So media is one big part of the speculation and the tool used for manipulating the currencies. Now this is part of the speculation. Part of the speculation. Speculation is when you believe or expect things, and also speculation is when you use it as a tool to affect the currencies. So how does speculation in media work? For example, let's take the case of Turkey. In the case of Turkey, in this year, from April and until now, they keep publishing reports and news that Turkey is having problems with its currency. It's always having issues. It's going to have a crisis. Its currency is not going to stand up against these issues and problems. Why? Why do they do this? They do this as part of, let's say, they say professional news and truth. But that's not the truth. That's not professional news. What they're doing is actually they are affecting the minds of the investors in order to withdraw their investments and plant fear into them. And so the currency of the Turkish lira goes down. It depreciates further and go into the crisis. So that's one part of it. Then also, of course, there are other factors like political instability and bad economic performance. All of these will affect, of course, again, the investors or foreign investors to withdraw all their investments and affect the currency and make the currency depreciate. I hope this was very helpful, and thank you for watching. Please, if you find it helpful and useful, please share it. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.